In March 2019, sisters Ava and Leah Warren, aged 24 and 21, vanished without a trace on a trail near Mount Shasta, California. For 3 years, they were presumed dead, victims of an accident, a sudden snowstorm, or a predator in the forest. But in November 2022, a woman walked into a small gas station in the town of McCloud, alive but unrecognizable. What she told police when she was finally able to speak shocked even the most seasoned investigators. Where she had been for those 3 years and what really happened to her and her sister, you'll find out in this video. Enjoy watching. Some names and details in this story have been changed to ensure anonymity and privacy. Not all photos are from the actual scene. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest cases. In early spring 2019, the town of Mount Shasta, located on the edge of Shasta, Trinity National Forest, was still covered in a thin layer of snow, but had begun welcoming the first groups of hiking tourists for the season. Among them were sisters Ava and Leah Warren, aged 26 and 23, from Portland, Oregon. Both were semi-professional landscape photographers who had gone on numerous outdoor trips in the Pacific Northwest, and this time they wanted to capture images of the melting snow on the southern slopes of the sacred Mount Shasta. According to the booking records at the Best Western Mount Shasta Hotel, they arrived in the evening of March 11th and planned to stay for 3 nights. The hotel owner said the 2 girls brought quite a lot of photography equipment, topographic maps, and a small walkie-talkie, and they appeared confident and experienced. The next morning, March 12th, they left the hotel in their silver Jeep Cherokee, carrying snacks and large backpacks. At 8:30 a.m., a camera at the Black Bear Diner in town captured them buying coffee and chatting happily. According to phone data, at 10:42 a.m., Ava sent her last message to her mother, saying they would be back before dark. After that, all communication signals went silent. That same afternoon, the weather at Mount Shasta suddenly changed, with temperatures dropping sharply and thick fog enveloping the Panther Meadow trailhead area, believed to be their destination. By 6 p.m., hotel staff noticed the 2 hadn't returned, and the Jeep was also missing from the parking lot. When the family called repeatedly but couldn't get through, they initially thought it was due to weak signal in the mountainous terrain. However, by late evening, anxiety grew because Ava and Leah were known for being cautious and always checking in when traveling far. At 10:10 p.m., their mother contacted the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office to report them missing. Police immediately logged the case, determined the last phone location, and sealed the hotel room to inspect their luggage. The initial report classified this as a high-risk missing persons case due to harsh weather and complex terrain. The matter was handed over to the Emergency Search and Rescue Unit that night, launching a large-scale search operation covering the entire slopes of Mount Shasta the following morning. At 6 a.m. on March 13, 2019, a temporary command center was set up right at the parking lot near the Panther Meadow trailhead entrance, the area identified as the last destination in the journey of sisters Ava and Leah Warren. The Siskiyou County Search and Rescue mobilized over 60 personnel, including 3 ground teams, 1 motorized team, 2 drones, and 2 search dogs specialized in locating missing persons in snowy conditions. At 7:15 a.m., the teams were assigned search zones, north, south, with the first group handling the Panther Meadow area, the second expanding toward Castle Lake Basin, and the third sweeping the dirt road connecting Gray Butte to the Shasta Trinity Pine Forest. The drones began operations, scanning infrared images over nearly 3 square miles, while ground teams searched for footprints and any dropped items. By 9 a.m., strong winds appeared on the eastern slope, with thick fog causing intermittent radio signals. The search dogs lost the scent after just over 200 meters due to fresh snow cover. No evidence was found, except for a few long skid marks on the hard snow, believed to be animal tracks. At 11 a.m., teams paused to refuel and update coordinates. A brief meeting was held at the command tent. Drone data showed no notable heat signatures or reflective signals. By early afternoon, the weather worsened: heavy snowfall, temperatures below 0 degrees Celsius, winds over 40 miles per hour. SAR Commander, Lieutenant Raymond Holt, decided to shorten the afternoon search radius and concentrate forces in lower terrain areas where the two girls were most likely to have taken shelter. At 3:30 p.m., the motorized team scanned the dirt road leading to Castle Lake, noting old tire tracks but unclear type. Forensic specialists photographed them for comparison with Ava Warren's registered vehicle data. By 5 p.m., weather conditions became dangerous, forcing drones to land and ground teams to withdraw to the assembly point. In the end-of-day summary report, no physical evidence or signals confirming the victim's location were found. However, with forecasts of continued snow overnight, the SAR commander requested maintaining standby forces and preparing to expand the search radius 5 miles south the next morning. In Portland, the Warren family was updated by police and asked to provide more photos, identifying marks and phone data from the two girls to aid locating efforts. On the night of March 13th, as heavy snow continued falling on the Shasta slopes, the entire rescue team remained on standby at the temporary command center, awaiting improved meteorological conditions to resume the operation the next day. On the morning of March 14, 2019, the third day of the search operation, the weather showed signs of improvement, with clearer skies and snow having stopped overnight. From 6 a.m., SAR teams were ordered to expand westward along the dirt road connecting Panther Meadow to Castle Lake Basin, where the terrain was more open and accessible by motorized vehicles. At 8:20 a.m., a member of the motorized team spotted a metallic object reflecting light under thick snow about 30 centimeters deep, in an area about 1.5 miles off the main road. Upon clearing the snow, they recognized the roof and windshield of a silver Jeep Cherokee. The license plate matched the vehicle registered to Ava Warren. The car was buried in snow up to half its body, parked diagonally on a small clearing near a narrow turnoff leading down to the valley. At 9 a.m., the scene was secured, and the forensic technical team arrived to document it. The doors were locked, keys still in the ignition in the off position. No signs of forced entry or external damage. Upon opening for inspection, the interior was tidy. Driver's seat in normal position, parking brake engaged. The glove compartment contained vehicle papers, insurance booklet, and a fuel receipt dated March 11th from a gas station in Mount Shasta. On the back seat were two backpacks, one containing spare clothes, windbreakers, national forest maps, and dried food. The other had personal items, a notebook, toothbrush, and painkillers, but no phones, cameras, or GPS devices, items the family confirmed the two always carried on outings. Door compartments held 2 unopened bottled waters and a few sealed energy bars. The battery was full, fuel tank over half full, indicating the vehicle was abandoned while still operational. No signs of struggle, blood, or unusual marks in the cabin. However, behind the vehicle in the soft snow, technicians noted a 2-meter-long indentation, possibly from another tire, but covered by fresh snow, lacking detail for identification. They photographed the entire area and recorded GPS coordinates. The 11:45 a.m. scene report stated, "No signs of crime at the scene. Vehicle left intact." At 1 p.m., the vehicle was towed by a specialized truck to the Siskiyou County Sheriff's impound lot for detailed forensic examination. Sealing was done per procedure, seals on doors, trunk, and gas cap, with time and signatures from 3 officers. That afternoon, forensic specialists began fingerprint scanning inside the cabin. Initial results showed 2 prints matching Ava and Leah's records, no unknowns. The floor was clean, no mud or melted snow, indicating doors hadn't been opened since snow cover. Additionally, outside, snow around the rear wheels was lightly compacted, suggesting something or someone stood there briefly before heavy snow resumed. Investigators noted this detail, marking it for follow-up the next day. By late afternoon, the entire vehicle was covered with a tarp and sealed pending deeper tests for soil and fiber samples. Meanwhile, SAR teams returned to the surrounding parking area for further traces, but new snowfall began whitening the area, gradually erasing ground prints. The third-day summary report stated, victim's vehicle located, no signs of struggle, no evidence of accident. Voluntary departure from vehicle prioritized as leading possibility. On the morning of March 15, 2019, the fourth day of the operation, the area around the discovered Jeep Cherokee was designated the search focus. From 6 a.m., 2 SAR ground teams fanned out in a half-mile radius around the scene to trace any movement away from the vehicle. Overnight fresh snow was only about 5 centimeters thick, enough to reveal small surface anomalies. Around 7:40 a.m., a member of the western team spotted a bright red object on the snow, caught on a low branch about 400 meters from the parking spot. Upon approach, they identified it as a torn fabric piece, approximately 10 by 15 centimeters, dark red synthetic fleece, with frayed edges. The sample was photographed, bagged in evidence, and sent to the temporary command center. By 9 a.m., comparing with clothing photos provided by the family, technicians confirmed the fabric matched the jacket Leah Warren wore on the morning of disappearance. From the discovery spot, rescue personnel observed 2 faint parallel indentation chains on the snow, heading uphill northeast. They marked and followed that direction. By about 10:15 a.m., the indentations became clearer, parallel with differing sizes, one larger, one smaller, consistent with 2 people walking together. Footsteps were relatively even, no scratches or long slides, indicating purposeful movement under control. The trail extended nearly 200 meters, ending at the edge of a low rocky slope with a small cave opening, part of a natural cave system surveyed by local explorers years prior. The cave mouth was about 2.5 meters wide, 1.8 meters high, dark inside with thin ice at the entrance. The SAR team leader contacted command, requesting lighting and protective gear for inspection. At 11:30 a.m., 2 personnel entered about 10 meters inside, noting lower temperature, damp smell, and old ash traces likely from a long-extinguished campfire. No recent activity signs, no trash or personal items. Cave floor dry, no slide or struggle marks. Some small rocks with tiny fabric fibers on edges were sampled for analysis. The cave entrance and surroundings were fully photographed, marked with reflective stakes for GPS. By early afternoon, snow resumed. The survey team withdrew, handing the scene to County Sheriff Forensics. At 2:20 p.m., the cave area was cordoned in a 50-meter radius, all access paths scanned for additional footprints or dropped items. Beyond the red fabric and footprint chain, no other evidence found. On-site preliminary analysis showed footprints heading uphill, no return direction, ending at the cave mouth, this noted by investigators as no turnaround or diversion signs were found. The scene report was completed at 4:45 p.m., concluding, evidence directly linked to victim Leah Warren discovered, along with 2-person footprints leading to old cave mouth. No struggle, fall, or blood marks recorded. Area preserved for further exploitation in subsequent searches. Drone overhead scans and ground positioning images were uploaded to command by end of day. As night fell, the entire Panther Meadow area was shrouded in thick fog. Rescue teams temporarily withdrew to assembly, while the cave area remained untouched, cordoned with caution tape and signal lights to prevent nighttime intrusion. On the morning of March 16, 2019, after 4 days of continuous searching, the Siskiyou County Sheriff held the first press conference at the temporary command center near Panther Meadow to announce the initial findings of the operation. Based on the evidence collected, including the Jeep Cherokee, a red fabric fragment confirmed to belong to Leah's clothing, and parallel footprints leading to the mouth of a rock cave, the police outlined 3 main possibilities: an accident due to weather, getting lost in the forest, or an attack by wild animals. The search and rescue spokesperson emphasized that the terrain around Mount Shasta is complex, with numerous snow slopes, crevices, and slippery areas that can easily cause loss of balance. According to them, The two sisters may have left the vehicle to take photos, then moved deeper without realizing an incoming snowstorm. When the snow began falling, visibility was limited, leading to disorientation and inability to return. The police also mentioned the possibility of an animal attack, primarily by black bears or mountain lions known to be in the area, but they acknowledged there were no traces of blood, claw marks, or animal fur at the scene to support this. Regarding meteorological conditions, data from the Mount Shasta observation station recorded a localized snowstorm around 11 a.m. on March 12, lasting about 40 minutes, with winds exceeding 35 miles per hour and temperatures dropping to -2 degrees Celsius, sufficient to endanger hikers without shelter. The police believed this could be the primary cause of the two girls' disappearance. In an internal report submitted the same day, the conclusion was clearly stated: no evidence supports the hypothesis of criminal activity or human involvement. However, the Warren family strongly opposed this assessment. Ava's father, Daniel Warren, told the press that both daughters had years of hiking experience, were trained in survival skills, and always carried GPS devices along with backup radios. Their mother, Karen, said Ava and Leah never split from the group or left the camping area without notifying others. The family also pointed out that the locked vehicle, with keys still in the ignition and belongings neatly arranged, did not fit a scenario of panic or fleeing from predators. They suggested someone may have approached the two after they left the vehicle. On the sidelines of the press conference, a local reporter asked about the possibility of a third party in the area, but the police representative declined to comment, stating there was no basis for it yet. Within the rescue team, some personnel expressed doubts about the footprints stopping at the cave entrance without any returning tracks, which did not resemble a typical disorientation situation. However, the SR commander affirmed there was insufficient data for an alternative conclusion. That afternoon, authorities announced a temporary scale-down of the search operation, maintaining a team to monitor the scene and continue gathering information from the public, while the meteorology analysis group was tasked with completing a report on weather conditions throughout the day of disappearance. By evening, local TV stations aired summary reports, recapping the case with the headline, "Mount Shasta, Two Sisters Believed Lost in Snowstorm." Meanwhile, in Portland, the Warren family began calling for volunteers and preparing a petition to the Federal Bureau of Investigation requesting a full review of the case, marking the start of a new phase in the search they believed was not simply a natural accident. On the morning of March 18, 2019, 2 days after the Siskiyou County Sheriff's initial hypothesis was announced, the Warren family officially submitted a petition to the Federal Bureau of Investigation requesting technical assistance in tracing the cell phone signals of Ava and Leah. The petition was forwarded to the FBI's Sacramento field office and quickly approved under procedures for supporting federal missing persons investigations. The same day, a team of mobile signal analysis experts from the FBI's Cyber Response Unit, in coordination with the County Sheriff's Department, began extracting location data, call history, and GPS activity from the two mobile devices registered to Ava Warren and Leah Warren. Carrier data showed both phones were functioning normally from early morning on March 12 until around 11:03 a.m. that day, when Ava's signal abruptly dropped from the nearest tower south of the Panther Meadow route. The last recorded location was approximately 1.4 miles northeast of where the Jeep Cherokee was found, in a dense forested area with no official trails leading into it. Leah's device disconnected just minutes later at 11:06 a.m. at nearly identical coordinates. Upon deeper analysis, the technical team discovered that between 10:55 and 11:01 a.m., Ava's phone had automatically logged a short Bluetooth connection lasting less than 18 seconds with an unknown device identified as Opticom 218. This was a short-range signal transmitter, typically used in industrial electronics or specialized equipment capable of strong signals in areas without coverage. Technical data indicated the device was not typical consumer equipment, but belonged to types used in telecommunications testing projects. Federal database checks identified Opticom as a product line from a small California company, primarily sold to researchers or engineers in optical transmission and wireless sensors. The initial trace showed the identifier 218 matched a device registered in 2018 under the name Colin Mercer, residing in Redding, about 90 miles south of Mount Shasta. Mercer was identified as a 36-year-old electronics engineer who had worked for a company specializing in optical components for medical devices. Personnel records showed no criminal history. He had registered for voluntary rescue training with the California Emergency Management Agency in 2018 and was recorded participating in several search operations in the Trinity Alps area. Mercer's social media data revealed numerous posts about optical lighting technology and light experiments in enclosed environments. The FBI's technical report sent back to the county police on the evening of March 19 noted, Ava Warren's phone lost signal under abnormal conditions. The appearance of a Bluetooth connection with Opticom 218 at that time cannot be considered random coincidence. The device is owned by Colin Mercer, an engineer residing in Redding, previously registered for activities in Northern California. Meanwhile, offline GPS data extracted from Ava's iCloud showed that before complete signal loss, the phone moved slowly within a narrow 200-meter range, suggesting the two girls may have stopped or been held in place briefly. Analysts ruled out dropping or powering off, as battery levels were over 60% at the last reading. These details were sent with coordinate maps marking the disconnection points and the assumed Bluetooth signal direction from the east of the trail. The supplemental report confirmed no data indicating the phones left the area after 11:06 a.m. In a closed meeting between the FBI and local investigators on March 20th, the parties agreed to checklists of individuals involved in rescue operations or living in the Redding area using similar technical equipment. Colin Mercer was added to the reference list with the note linked to matching technical connection device, relationship to victims not established. Although there was no criminal basis yet, this information meant the case was no longer viewed purely as an environmental disappearance. The final FBI technical report was sent to the Mount Shasta Command Center that evening, along with a recommendation to expand the search northeast toward Ava's phone signal loss coordinates and sweep the entire area within a 2-mile radius of the likely short-range Bluetooth connection source. By March 22, 2019, the search and rescue operation at Mount Shasta had entered its 10th day since beginning. The SAR force maintained over 40 personnel with technical support from the FBI and forest rangers, focusing on sweeping the northeastern forest where Ava's phone signal was last recorded. However, after days of surveying, no additional evidence or biological traces related to the two victims were found. Crown teams had covered the entire area within a radius of over 6 miles from the vehicle discovery site, using magnetic field detectors and infrared cameras, but all results were negative. From March 19 to 21, weather deteriorated with strong winds and continuous snowfall, complicating the search. Internal reports estimated over 200 drone flight hours and 150 miles of forest manually swept, with no new discoveries. In Redding, the FBI signal analysis team completed cross-referencing coordinates between Ava's phone and the predicted Bluetooth signal source, but concluded the margin of error was too large for a specific point. The summary meeting on the morning of March 22 took place in a somber atmosphere at the temporary command center, when SAR Commander Lieutenant Raymond Holt announced the decision to suspend the comprehensive search and shift to passive monitoring. Per county regulations, when no evidence or new signals appear within 10 days, the case is transferred to the Special Investigations Unit for storage as a cold case. At 3 p.m. that day, all equipment, vehicles, and personnel were withdrawn from the scene. Reflective markers around the cave area were removed, leaving only a few warning signs to deter public entry. The operation closure minutes stated, no criminal traces detected, no new evidence beyond collected samples. Survival chances for the two individuals after 10 days missing in harsh weather conditions, assessed as 0. The case was officially coded Cold Case 14-09, archived at the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department, with a copy forwarded to the FBI Sacramento office for ongoing technical data monitoring in case of phone reactivation. When news of the search suspension was released to the media, the Warren family expressed disappointment and opposed the decision. Daniel Warren stated in an interview with a local station that ending the operation with many unexplained details, especially the strange Bluetooth connection data, was an abdication of responsibility. Karen Warren sent a letter requesting authorities allow the family to organize a private volunteer group to continue searching outside snow-covered areas, but the request was denied for safety reasons. Within the police department, some investigators felt gaps remained, particularly the simultaneous phone signal losses and no signs of emergency beacon use. However, no legal evidence was sufficient to keep the case active. On March 24, the Field Command Center was fully dismantled, and the search area, no unauthorized entry signs were taken down. The last rescue personnel left Panther Meadow in silence as spring snow began melting on the mountainside. By the end of March, the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department issued an official statement. After 10 days of comprehensive search deployment, no additional evidence was collected. The disappearance of Ava and Leah Warren is temporarily archived as Cold Case 14-09 until new information emerges. The Warren family, though exhausted, declared they would not stop, affirming the two girls were never the type to give up halfway, and that the truth about what happened on the mountain remains hidden somewhere in the snow. Nearly 2 years after the search operation ended, the disappearance of sisters Ava and Leah Warren gradually faded into silence. Cold Case 14-09 remained in the archives of the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department, reopened only periodically every 6 months for technical data reviews as required. The Warren family, though maintaining regular contact with authorities, received virtually no new updates. However, on December 3, 2020, an unexpected event occurred. At 10:17 p.m., Karen Warren received an email sent to her personal address, known only to close friends and family. The subject line contained just 3 words: Mount Shasta case. The email body was a single short sentence in all capital letters: "They are under the light." There were no attachments, no signature, and no specific sender address beyond a random string ending in protonmail.com. Initially, the family assumed it was a cruel prank due to the vague wording and timing coinciding with the 2-year anniversary of the disappearance. However, upon checking the headers, Karen noticed the send time displayed in Pacific Time Zone and the originating IP from Redding, California, the city about 90 miles south of Mount Shasta. She immediately forwarded the email to the Siskiyou County Sheriff for verification. On December 5, the Sheriff's Cyber Investigations Unit, coordinating with FBI technical experts, conducted tracing. Initial results confirmed the email was sent through an anonymized encrypted system, making reverse tracing nearly impossible. However, experts noted the initial origination point was within Redding city limits, near the western industrial area, with many abandoned warehouses and electronics repair shops. The summary report noted, "Sender, unidentified, content non-threatening, no signs of extortion or coercion." Although police recorded and added it to File 14-09, they did not open a new investigation, deeming the evidence insufficient for criminal grounds. The sheriff's spokesperson said in a brief press conference on December 7, "We recognize the information is non-specific and does not directly indicate criminal activity. However, the data will be retained for future cross-referencing if new details emerge." The Warren family disagreed, especially upon discovering the phrase "under the light" matched descriptions of the Opticom device mentioned in the 2019 FBI report. Daniel Warren called the Sacramento FBI office directly to request cross-checking related cases in the Redding area, but received no official response. Throughout December, the family received 2 more emails from the same address, both blank with only the subject, "Find the place of light." Though no evidence proved authenticity, they printed and submitted all to police for supplemental archiving. By early 2021, the case saw no progress. Cold Case 14-09 remained unchanged, with the final administrative note, received anonymous emails of undetermined origin, content insufficient to reopen investigation. Periodic monitoring. The Warren family sank back into silence, while the phrase "they are under the light" became a lingering obsession for them. A brief message that briefly reignited fading hope before it dimmed again in that snow-covered winter. Nearly 3 years after sisters Ava and Leah Warren vanished, Cold Case 14-09 had almost been forgotten. The Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office only provided annual updates, mostly consisting of routine digital data reviews and DNA cross-checks with similar cases. The Warren family continued to maintain the social media page, Find the Warrens, where people occasionally posted photos or unverified information about the two girls, but most of it was dismissed as worthless. However, on the morning of November 8, 2022, at 6:42 a.m., an unexpected incident occurred in the town of McCloud, about 30 miles southeast of Mount Shasta. An unidentified woman appeared at a gas station on Highway 89, in a state of disorientation and exhaustion. Security cameras captured her entering the store, long, matted, dirty hair, barefoot, wearing a crumpled silver-gray jacket. She tried to speak to the on-duty clerk, but her voice was hoarse and trembling, only repeating fragmented phrases. "My sister, still there, light too bright." The gas station employee initially thought she was intoxicated or homeless, but when the woman collapsed on the floor from exhaustion, they immediately called 911. McCloud police and an ambulance arrived just 7 minutes later. As she was carried out of the store, she shielded her eyes with her hands, reacting strongly to the sunlight despite the overcast sky. At the local hospital, initial identification was conducted through the National Missing Persons Database, NAMUS. Fingerprints matched the record of Ava Warren, who had gone missing in March 2019 near Mount Shasta. The information was urgently forwarded to the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office. That same day, the FBI's Sacramento field office received confirmation of her identity. Ava was emergency transferred to Mercy Medical Center in Redding at 2:30 p.m. for a comprehensive examination. The initial medical report noted the patient was severely malnourished, pale-skinned, with hair loss, and multiple small circular scars on her wrists and ankles. The treating physician described her as fully aware of her own name but temporarily disoriented, unable to recall the past 3 years. When asked about Leah, Ava only repeated, "She's still there," in a soft, almost whispered voice. Preliminary psychological evaluation revealed signs of post-traumatic stress disorder, chronic insomnia, and photophobia. In the nursing notes, the on-duty nurse recorded, "Patient exhibits fear response upon seeing fluorescent lights, requests lights be turned off or dimmed." Police immediately secured the treatment area and stationed 2 security officers at her room to ensure safety and prevent media contact. On November 9th, a final DNA sample was taken for confirmation, resulting in a 100% match with the sample stored in Cold Case 14-09. Ava Warren was officially confirmed alive after more than 3 years missing. The information was promptly reported to Washington via the NCIC system. Simultaneously, the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office held an emergency meeting to discuss witness protection plans and strategies for taking her statement once her health stabilized. Local media obtained the information from internal sources and began reporting on the woman who survived 3 years missing near Mount Shasta, forcing the hospital to tighten access controls. On the night of November 9th, when a psychologist attempted to speak with Ava in low-light conditions, she began uttering scattered words: light, machine, noise, metal room. Though unable to express complete thoughts, she clearly described an enclosed artificial space, completely unlike the mountainous forest environment where she was presumed to have disappeared. The doctor noted strong reactions to mechanical sounds like ventilation fans or exhaust systems. She immediately covered her ears and bowed her head. This prompted the FBI's Special Investigation Team to consider the possibility that she had been confined or lived in unnatural conditions. On November 10th, forensic teams arrived at the hospital to collect skin, hair, and clothing samples from what Ava was wearing when found. The silver-gray jacket showed copper-colored stains and soot, none of which matched any items listed from her 2019 departure from Portland. The samples were immediately sent to the FBI laboratory in Quantico for component analysis. The Warren family was notified of the good news and traveled to Redding that day, though police requested no direct contact until medical and identification processes were complete. By the end of November 10th, the FBI's interim report to the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office stated, "Subject Ava Warren, missing since March 2019, has been confirmed alive. Currently receiving treatment at Mercy Medical Center, Redding. Medical, psychological evaluation, and biological evidence preservation required prior to formal interview." 3 years after disappearing amid the snows of Mount Shasta, Ava's return completely altered the perspective on what seemed a permanently closed case. On November 11, 2022, after 2 days of initial stabilization, the FBI forensic team, in coordination with Mercy Medical Center's medical staff, completed a comprehensive examination report on Ava Warren. The report, over 40 pages long, was prepared in 2 copies, one retained at the hospital and one sent directly to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The findings documented numerous abnormal indicators showing the victim's body had endured prolonged isolation from the natural environment. Blood vitamin D levels were only 4.2 nanograms per milliliter, nearly 10 times below the normal minimum, indicating almost no exposure to sunlight for an extended period. Bone density was reduced, skin pallid, and the epidermis on hands and feet thin and dry, consistent with prolonged confinement in an enclosed space. Under microscopic examination, skin cells showed signs of continuous exposure to artificial light, specifically micro-damage from short-wavelength radiation, similar to that emitted by high-powered medical LEDs or industrial lighting. Additionally, small, evenly spaced circular scars, 0.8 to 1.2 centimeters in diameter, were present on the wrists, ankles, and lower abdomen, showing healing from months earlier. Some scars had darkened edges, indicating repeated friction or abrasion from a hard material, likely metal. No acute injuries were found, no fractures or internal organ damage, but overall muscle mass was severely depleted and body fat significantly reduced, consistent with prolonged confinement and nutritional deficiency. Hair analysis revealed abnormally high levels of zinc and copper, commonly seen in individuals exposed to metal vapors in confined spaces. Blood tests detected traces of isopropyl alcohol and small amounts of ethylene glycol, compounds typically found in industrial cleaners or cooling fluids. These findings led the forensic team to rule out survival in a wilderness environment. The biological section of the report stated, "No evidence of natural exposure to soil, insects, or forest bacteria. Skin microbiome consistent with a controlled and closed artificial environment with limited ventilation." Hair and nail analysis also showed interrupted growth layers, indicating development halted in multiple phases, common in severe malnutrition or extreme light deprivation. In the behavioral observation section, the psychiatrist described Ava as exhibiting excessive defensive responses to mechanical sounds, particularly ventilators or surgical lamp noises. When white light was shown into her pupils, she immediately closed her eyes, recoiled, and experienced rapid heartbeat. Throughout the 4-hour examination, she only opened her eyes when room lighting was reduced below 30 lux. The lead doctor concluded that these reactions were genuine consequences of prolonged exposure to intense light in confinement. Another notable detail was her completely disrupted circadian rhythm. Body temperature and melatonin hormone data showed no response to natural day-night cycles, a hallmark of living in an environment without varying light. The report's conclusion clearly stated, "The combined medical, biological, and behavioral evidence indicates patient Ava Warren was confined in an enclosed environment completely isolated from natural light for a minimum of 2 years. Skin and soft tissue damage indicates continuous high-intensity artificial lighting. Scars and wear on wrists and ankles are consistent with prolonged restraint or fixation. No evidence of direct physical violence, but clear indications of extended confinement and deprivation of natural living conditions." The report also recommended transferring all samples to the FBI's technical laboratory for further identification of light sources and metal materials contacted by the victim, while urging special protective measures due to the likely involvement of sophisticated criminal activity. Finally, the document ended with a note from the lead forensic examiner. This case does not correspond to any typical natural disappearance or survival scenario. All signs point to Ava Warren having endured a period of confinement in an artificial environment with constant illumination, location, and conditions as yet undetermined. This assessment completely shifted the direction of the investigation. The complete forensic report was forwarded to the FBI's Sacramento field office on November 14, 2022, accompanied by a recommendation to reevaluate the entire Warren disappearance as a criminal investigation. The following morning, the supervising special agent for Northern California signed the order to officially reopen the file under new case number 1409R. A joint task force comprising forensic specialists, field investigators, and geological analysts was formed, with a temporary headquarters established in Redding, where Ava was receiving treatment. In the first meeting, investigators focused on the fragmented memories Ava could recall. During therapy sessions, she mentioned the sound of dripping water, regular mechanical noises like an air compressor, and a damp metallic smell. When asked about her surroundings, Ava described no windows, just white light shining down from above, and occasionally hearing distant echoes, as if in a tunnel. These descriptions led the team to suspect confinement in an underground structure, most likely an abandoned mine or bunker. The U.S. Geological Survey was consulted to provide stratigraphic maps of the Mount Shasta area, particularly around Castle Lake Ridge, home to dozens of abandoned mines from the 1950s. Based on the coordinates where Ava's phone signal was lost 3 years earlier, experts narrowed the search to a roughly 5-square-mile area that included the cave system where a red fabric fragment had previously been found. On November 17th, a technical team deployed FLIR-equipped thermal drones to scan the entire zone. After 3 hours of continuous flight, the equipment detected an anomalous heat signature approximately 12 meters underground, coordinates matching the location near an old copper mine closed since 1974. Infrared data showed a stable heat source unaffected by weather, suggesting possible machinery or powered equipment below. Geological analysis indicated the area's rock structure was relatively dry and stable, suitable for modification or expansion as a shelter. The Siskiyou County Sheriff was immediately notified of the discovery. On the morning of November 18th, an interagency meeting was held in Redding, attended by representatives from the FBI, the National Forest Service, and the California Department of Mining to determine the site's legal status. Records showed the mine was privately owned by a company dissolved in 1985, with no current manager. Land rights had reverted to the state, allowing the FBI to obtain a search warrant upon proving criminal involvement. Based on forensic evidence and Ava's statements, the regional special agent in charge submitted the request to the federal court for the Eastern District of California. On the afternoon of November 19th, federal judge Robert Ellison approved the search warrant for the Castle Lake Ridge area, permitting examination within a 1-mile radius of the heat source coordinates. Immediately afterward, the FBI field investigation team was deployed. 5 specialized vehicles carrying lighting equipment, geomagnetic sensors, and ground-penetrating radar were dispatched from Sacramento to Mount Shasta overnight. At 5 a.m. on November 20th, the area was cordoned off and a safety perimeter established. Technicians began probing borings from the old mine entrance. At approximately 10 meters depth, radar detected a void signal indicative of an artificial chamber or tunnel. Nearby, a ground drone exploring an old side shaft discovered a newly installed steel wall, completely unlike the surrounding natural rock. The rapid report stated, "Discovery of artificial underground structure beneath old mine strata, showing signs of recent modification." The field commander immediately requested increased security and contacted the mobile forensic unit to prepare for direct entry. By 9 a.m., the entire Castle Lake Ridge area was under FBI control. Technicians began measuring gas levels to ensure safe oxygen concentrations before breaching the shaft. Meanwhile, in Reading, investigators continued interviewing Ava for additional details. She described memories of a heavy steel door opening with a prolonged metallic screech and so many lights that you couldn't see your own shadow. She had no clear recollection of the geographic location, but mentioned occasionally hearing rolling rocks and wind whistling through vents. These details aligned significantly with the characteristics of the abandoned mine under FBI survey. That evening, the consolidated report sent to Sacramento headquarters stated, "Suspicious underground site discovered with artificial subsurface structure, matching victim description. Stable heat source indicates mechanical or powered activity inside. Recommend preserving scene and proceeding with court-authorized search." After nearly 4 years since the disappearance was recorded, the investigation was officially relaunched, now centered on Castle Lake Ridge, no longer just a map coordinate, but potentially the site holding the answers to the entire mystery of Case 1409R. On the morning of November 20th, 2022, immediately after receiving the search warrant, the FBI Special Task Force, in coordination with Siskiyou County Sheriff's deputies, approached the abandoned mine at Castle Lake Ridge. It was cold, with thick fog, and a temperature of only about 36 degrees Fahrenheit. The mine entrance was identified at an elevation of 5,774 feet above sea level, hidden behind a moss-covered rocky slope and shrubs. According to old geological maps, the tunnel system had once been used for copper mining before being sealed in the mid-1970s. As the reconnaissance team approached, they discovered that the main entrance had partially collapsed, but on the right side there was a small passageway reinforced with steel frames and new wooden planks, indicating recent human activity within the past few years. Technicians used gas detection equipment to check for safety, confirming no toxic gases or risk of collapse. At 8:15 a.m., the first team entered, equipped with low-power lights, helmet-mounted cameras, and communication systems. The deeper they went, the colder and drier the air became, with signs of metal grinding on the tunnel walls, evidencing reinforcement work. About 230 feet from the entrance, the reconnaissance team discovered a steel wall blocking the path, painted metallic gray, with a heavy door in the center, featuring an electronic lock. A fine layer of dust covered the lock, but there were no cobwebs or signs of mold around the door, suggesting the area was well maintained. After receiving instructions, the technical team used a plasma cutter to open it. At 9:03 a.m., the door was removed, revealing a narrow chamber leading down metal stairs. The smell of old metal and burnt plastic wafted out with a dry, hot draft. When lights illuminated the interior, a square room approximately 323 square feet appeared, with all walls and ceiling lined with reflective stainless steel panels. The steel plates were seamlessly joined, and the ceiling had 12 high-power LED lights, the type commonly used in medical or laboratory settings. In the center was a fixed iron bed frame welded to the floor, beside it a stainless steel table, 2 folding chairs, a tool rack, and a control box with electrical wiring. On the table were numerous plastic bottles containing clear liquid, several syringes, and 2 cups with white powder residue at the bottom. In the corner, 2 fixed security cameras pointed toward the center of the bed, with cables leading to a small recording device in a wall niche. On the west side was a chain system about 10 feet long, with a locking cuff at the end, the surface worn and bearing small skin fragments. Samples were immediately collected for DNA testing. Forensic experts documented all details with photos and video, while sealing items likely to contain biological traces. Next to the bed was a data storage box containing micro SD cards, several rechargeable batteries, and 2 broken flashlights. The room temperature was about 18 degrees Fahrenheit higher than outside the tunnel, indicating a previous independent power source. Upon further inspection, the technical team discovered another small door hidden behind a reflective steel panel in the southeast corner. This door was less than 5 feet high, secured with a simple sliding bolt. When opened, it revealed a narrow chamber connected to an auxiliary room, completely dark inside. When light shone in, broken wooden frames and dusty old blankets became visible. Not far from the wall, under a tarp, the investigation team found a human form covered in thick dust, surrounded by scattered bone fragments. The area was immediately sealed off. Forensic experts carefully excavated, collecting all remaining bone, hair, and fabric samples. On the floor were circular indentations, suggesting the former placement of heavy objects. On-site rapid DNA scanning confirmed the genetic sequence matched the archived sample of Leah Warren, Ava's sister. Estimated time of death was more than 2 years prior. Beside the remains were a leather bracelet fragment and a blue hair tie, both matching items Leah had carried on her 2019 trip. After collection was complete, the investigation team mapped the tunnel, 2 connected rooms in total, all walls lined with steel, industrial lighting, and artificial ventilation via small fans. The main room ceiling also had heat sensors and recording microphones. These details indicated this was not a temporary shelter, but a purposefully designed facility with advanced engineering. By 1 p.m., the scene was completely sealed, secured with 3 layers of FBI seals. An urgent report sent to the Sacramento headquarters stated, "Discovery of a high-tech artificial underground structure. Interior contains numerous electronic devices, medical-grade lighting, restraint chains, and 2 surveillance cameras. An auxiliary room contains remains identified by DNA as matching Leah Warren." As the entire special task force withdrew from the tunnel, the outside ground was enveloped in thick fog. Faint light, reflecting off the cold steel of the open door, marking the biggest breakthrough in the investigation since the disappearance was reported more than 3 years earlier. After the forensic team completed evidence collection at the steel tunnel under Castle Lake Ridge, 8 micro SD cards found in the data box connected to the wall-mounted recording device were immediately transferred to the FBI's Digital Analysis Lab in Sacramento. Data extraction occurred in a controlled environment, witnessed by 3 forensic experts and 2 special agents. All 8 cards were intact, each with 128 GB capacity, continuously storing footage from multiple cameras in uncompressed AV format, with recording starting in April 2019, just 1 month after the Warren sisters disappeared. The first video was blurry and slightly shaky, showing a room identical to Ava's description, reflective metal walls, bright white light shining down from the ceiling, no shadows. In the center of the frame were 2 women with wrists chained, sitting on the iron bed. Facial and physical identification confirmed they were Ava and Leah Warren. In the corner appeared the shadow of a man in a metallic gray protective coat, wearing a mask and goggles. He held a notebook, occasionally adjusting the lights, taking notes, and saying nothing. Background audio only captured fan noise and electronic beeps. In subsequent videos, the room lighting remained at extreme intensity, sometimes flickering in cycles. Leah often shielded her face with her hands, while Ava sat motionless, seemingly unconscious. In one segment, the man approached closer to the camera, removed his goggles, and facial recognition software confirmed a 94% match with Colin Mercer, the electronics engineer from Redding, previously noted by the FBI 3 years earlier for the Opticom 218 device. In mid-2020 footage, Mercer appeared frequently, carrying light meters and heat sensors, sometimes murmuring, "Phase 3, enhanced spectrum, skin response stable, heart rate decreased, maintain 24-hour illumination." There was no evidence of physical abuse, but clearly, the 2 victims were detained and subjected to prolonged experimentation or observation. Leah grew increasingly weak, often leaning against the wall, eyes closed, responding slowly. In the September 12, 2020 video, she no longer moved, while Ava tried to rouse her. Mercer stood a few steps away, noting something in his book before leaving the frame. 2 days later, footage showed Leah motionless on the floor, Ava holding her, while the room lights continued relentlessly. There was no sign Mercer attempted rescue or removed the body. In the following weeks, cameras recorded only Ava alone in the room, sometimes talking to herself, sometimes silent, staring at the blinding ceiling. From October 2020, an additional camera provided another angle, showing Mercer placing more sensors near the bed and continuously entering data into a laptop. In the December 3rd video, audio captured him saying, "Temperature stable, skin still highly reflective, continue experiment." This was the only instance of Mercer speaking audibly. Later segments showed Ava increasingly debilitated, repeatedly collapsing and attempting to crawl to the door, but restrained by chains. Recording continued until February 2021, then abruptly ended. The final video stopped at 11:12 p.m. on February 18th, with the image fading, fan noise weakening, then complete blackout, determined as the moment the tunnel's generator shut down. Metadata analysis confirmed no editing or tampering. The SD cards recorded directly from the internal camera system, powered independently. In the summary report sent to Washington, the investigation team concluded, recovered video provides direct evidence that Colin Mercer detained victims Ava and Leah Warren in an underground facility beneath Castle Lake Ridge from at least April 2019 to February 2021. Leah died during captivity. Ava survived until the facility's power failed. All 8 SD cards were sealed as evidence and transferred to special storage, with encrypted copies used for upcoming legal proceedings. After reviewing all 8 SD cards and collected samples from the tunnel, the FBI officially shifted the case to suspect apprehension. From the video data, the man's face appearing in multiple segments was identified by facial recognition with 98% accuracy as matching Colin Mercer, a 39-year-old electronics engineer living in Redding. The FBI's Financial Investigation Unit immediately analyzed Mercer's spending and bank records from 2018 to 2021. Results revealed a series of suspicious transactions starting in February 2019, just weeks before Ava and Leah Warren vanished. During that period, Mercer spent over $47,000 at medical and technical equipment suppliers, including large orders from an Oregon distributor specializing in high-power medical LEDs, heat sensors, infrared cameras, and stainless steel materials. He also purchased 2 diesel generators and an industrial UPS system sufficient for continuous operation of an enclosed facility. Orders were shipped to a rented storage unit on the outskirts of Redding, matching the IP address location of the anonymous email. They are under the light, received by the Warren family in 2020. Expanding the trace, agents discovered Mercer owned a 2014 Ford F-350 truck, equipped with insurer-required GPS tracking. With a court order, the FBI retrieved all satellite data and found in March 2019 the vehicle made multiple trips between Redding and the Mount Shasta area. Specifically, on March 10 and 11, GPS logged stops of over 4 hours at Castle Lake Ridge. The exact location of the later discovered steel tunnel. Coordinates matched nearly perfectly with the prior drone heat signature, differing by less than 65 feet. At the same time, Interstate 5 traffic cameras captured the F-350 heading north, cargo bed covered with tarp and carrying heavy loads. After the Warren sisters' disappearance, Mercer abruptly left the volunteer search team and quit his electronics job, citing personal research. He lived in isolation in a single-story home in West Sacramento suburbs with no visitors. On November 27, 2022, a federal arrest warrant was prepared based on physical and video evidence. The FBI surveilled Mercer for 3 days, noting he often left home at night, driving to a warehouse 15 miles away containing numerous metal crates. On the morning of December 1st, at 6:10 a.m., federal task force units coordinated with local police to raid Mercer's home in Fair Oaks, Sacramento. He was subdued in the garage, unarmed. Upon arrest, Mercer remained calm, offered no resistance, and only asked, "You found it?" Police seized his phone, 2 laptops, and multiple portable hard drives. In the office, they found a locked metal filing cabinet containing hundreds of numbered pages categorized Spectral Exposure Study, Phase 1 through Phase 7. Contents: detailed lighting parameters, skin responses, circadian rhythms, and thermal charts for Subject A and Subject B, matching victims Ava and Leah Warren. Also included were technical drawings of the tunnel structure, with lighting, ventilation, and power systems identical to the actual site under Castle Lake Ridge. In another drawer, police found a small sealed plastic bag containing numerous women's hair strands, about 6 inches long, light brown. Subsequent DNA analysis confirmed a match with Leah's hair sample. In his basement, the search recovered a custom-built spectral projector using high-power LEDs capable of simulating sunlight across various wavelengths. Chemical traces in the room matched isopropyl alcohol and ethylene glycol previously detected in Ava's blood. The 22-page search report concluded, evidence seized at Colin Mercer's residence confirms the suspect designed, constructed, and operated the detention facility under Castle Lake Ridge, using the 2 victims in an artificial lighting experiment lasting over 2 years. Mercer was transported to the FBI Sacramento headquarters for interrogation. All assets, including his home, truck, and rented warehouse, were sealed for investigation. The arrest was officially announced that afternoon, marking a major turning point in the pursuit of truth in the Warren case. A disappearance once thought closed, now revealed as a crime concealed beneath cold steel and artificial light. Immediately after Colin Mercer's arrest, the entire underground site at Castle Lake Ridge was completely sealed off to facilitate the federal forensic examination phase. Within 2 weeks, more than 30 technicians from the FBI, the California State Forensic Unit, and the Quantico Laboratory participated in parallel analysis of the collected samples. The complete report, over 300 pages long, was released internally on December 17, 2022, confirming Mercer's direct involvement in the detention facility and the death of Leah Warren. Fingerprint comparison results showed a total of 27 perfect matches with Mercer's post-arrest fingerprint samples on the surfaces of the reflective steel bunker, the door, the metal table, the lighting equipment, plastic bottle casings, and the iron bed frame. Some fingerprints overlap smaller handprints identified as Ava's, proving that both had physical contact at the scene. On the chain fixed in the eastern wall corner, the forensic team found DNA samples matching both Mercer and the 2 victims, with Mercer's sample on the lock clasp and Ava's and Leah's DNA adhering to the middle section of the chain, including epidermal cells and damaged skin tissue from friction. The results proved that Mercer was the one who directly operated the equipment used to restrain the victims. Under the iron bed, technicians recovered dried blood traces covered by a layer of metal dust. Upon analysis, the first blood sample matched Leah's DNA profile perfectly, and the second matched Ava's, indicating that both had bled in the same area, most likely from friction injuries to their wrists and ankles during prolonged restraint. Soil samples from under the bunker floor contained traces of oxidized hemoglobin and denatured proteins due to exposure to intense light, consistent with the environmental conditions previously identified by the forensic team, continuous artificial lighting. On the LED bulbs, safety goggles, light meter, and notebook seized from Mercer's home, his fingerprints and dried sweat were all present. When conducting chemical spectral scans, investigators detected identical compounds between the equipment in the bunker and items at his private residence, particularly the silver-gray epoxy paint used to coat the reflective walls from the same production batch and with the same trace elements. Footprint traces on the steel floor were identified using 3D scanning technology, matching the industrial boots owned by Mercer, size 10.5, Red Wing Iron Ranger model. Further analysis of hair samples found in the bunker revealed at least 4 strands carrying Mercer's DNA intermixed with Ava's hair, reinforcing the hypothesis that he was directly present throughout the detention period. More than 160 samples were cross-referenced, with no discrepancies. The forensic report also noted systematic arrangements. The chain was welded in place with high-strength adhesive, The lighting system was positioned precisely at 90 degrees relative to the bed, and the ventilation equipment was programmed to turn on and off in 30-minute cycles, all reflecting meticulous calculation rather than impulsive actions. In the secondary chamber where Leah's remains were discovered, forensics recovered 12 microfractures in the wrist and rib bones, but no signs of sharp trauma, indicating she died from exhaustion rather than direct assault. Mercer's DNA was also detected on the blanket fragment covering the body, at low levels but confirming he was the only person to handle the remains after Leah's death. In the stainless steel table area, the chemical examination team identified multiple residues of isopropyl alcohol and ethylene glycol cleaning solutions, the exact types found in Ava's blood, proving Mercer used them for disinfection or environmental control in the experiment. In the summary conclusions section, the report stated clearly, all physical, biological, and chemical evidence collected at the scene indicates that the suspect Colin Mercer's actions were intentional, prepared, and prolonged over an extended period. The construction of the underground facility, installation of medical equipment, maintenance of artificial lighting systems, and detention of 2 victims far exceed any signs of impulsive behavior. This was a calculated plan, executed by an individual with advanced technical knowledge, with objectives not random violence, but unauthorized experimentation or research on human subjects. The report was signed by the head of federal forensics at Quantico, sent to the FBI director and the federal prosecutor's office in California, accompanied by a recommendation to prosecute Mercer for federal kidnapping, premeditated murder, and violations of human rights laws. The evidence recovered from the bunker ended all doubts about coincidence, affirming that there could be no element of chance in Leah's death and Ava's years of captivity. On December 19, 2022, after her health stabilized and she underwent intensive psychological therapy, Ava Warren was permitted by the FBI to participate in her first official statement session in a special interview room at Mercy Medical Center, under the supervision of a psychiatrist and 2 federal investigators. She began recounting the fragmented memories she had carried since the day she disappeared. According to Ava, on the morning of March 12, 2019, after parking at the Panther Meadow trailhead, the 2 sisters prepared their gear for a short hike southeast. Leah walked ahead while she locked the car. As they had just left the main trail, a man emerged from the forest, dressed in hiking gear and carrying a large backpack. He greeted them, said he was surveying geology, and asked if they had noticed any GPS signal interference. Ava remembered light reflecting off a metallic object in his hand, possibly a measuring device. Then, just a few minutes later, she felt dizzy and lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was lying on the iron bed, with her wrists and ankles chained, her head throbbing, unsure how much time had passed. The surroundings were dimly lit, with only the sound of a fan and electrical humming. Leah was restrained on the opposite bed, eyes wide open in panic. A while later, the steel door opened, and the man entered, wearing a mask and safety goggles. He did not give his name, only saying this is the artificial light experimentation phase, then increasing the ceiling light intensity, forcing both to squeeze their eyes shut. In the early days, he brought canned food and water, taking notes in a notebook whenever they reacted. Ava said, Leah tried to ask him why they had been kidnapped, but he only replied coldly, "I want to see how light changes people when it never turns off." Leah was then forced to stand under the lights for many hours, sometimes half a day, until she fainted. Each time, Mercer checked her pulse, took notes, and adjusted the lighting. Ava remembered he had an old laptop, attaching sensors to their wrists, saying he needed data on epidermal reflexes. Time passed, and they lost all sense of day and night. Mercer gradually reduced their food, leaving only porridge and nutritional pills. Leah began to weaken, becoming sensitive to light, with blistered and painful skin. After about 3 months, she developed a high fever and then passed out permanently. Ava recounted that on that night, the lights remained blazing. Leah lay motionless with weak breathing. She begged Mercer for help, but he only watched and said, The second sample is no longer responsive before leaving. The next day, Leah did not wake up. Ava screamed and cried until exhausted, while he brought in a tarp to cover her sister's body, dragged it to the adjacent room, and closed the door. From then on, Ava was alone. He forced her to continue, recording the adaptation process, giving her a notebook and pen, making her write down whenever she felt dizzy, cold, or had a racing heart. Ava said she had to pretend to cooperate to survive. She wrote meaningless numbers, sometimes drawing shapes to mark time. On one occasion, when he forgot to wear gloves, she noticed a long scar on Mercer's left wrist, a detail that later helped her identify him when the FBI showed her photos. She said he usually stayed in the room only a few hours each day, leaving the automated lighting to run otherwise. In the days after Leah's death, Ava gradually lost her sense of time. Her hair fell out, nails weakened, skin blistered. When Mercer started coming less often, she sensed something was changing. One day, the generator sound weakened and then stopped completely. The lights flickered and then went out, leaving complete darkness for the first time in years. It took her a few minutes to realize the absolute silence, hearing only her own heartbeat. Ava said she broke the chain by bending the rusted clasp with her full body strength, then groped along a cool airflow from the wall corner. After many hours, she found a small side door in the adjacent room, where Mercer had taken Leah's body. She used a metal bar to break the hinges, then crawled through a narrow passage leading upward. She didn't remember how long it took, but eventually she saw natural light filtering through a rock crevice. She crawled out, her body freezing, thirsty, and dizzy, but she didn't stop. After escaping the bunker, she wandered aimlessly through the forest until she reached a small road leading toward McCloud, where she was discovered at a gas station. Throughout the statement, Ava spoke slowly, often pausing to breathe. When investigators asked why Mercer did this, she replied, "He didn't hate anyone. He just wanted to control the light. To him, light was God." The entire statement was recorded on video and filed under Case 1409, RS, Surviving Witness Account, Code AW1. The FBI's interim report concluded, the statement aligns perfectly with video data, forensic evidence, and timestamps in the records. The victims were abducted, detained, and forced to participate in a prolonged light experiment lasting over 2 years. Leah died from exhaustion. Ava survived through adaptation and feigned cooperation until the bunker's power supply depleted. After collecting Ava Warren's full statement and completing the forensic examinations, the FBI shifted the investigation focus to analyzing Colin Mercer's psychological profile to determine the motive for the crime and his level of awareness during the acts. Mercer's personnel, academic and medical records were retrieved from multiple sources, including research institutions and medical facilities where he had worked. The results showed he was once a highly capable optics engineer. Mercer graduated from Stanford University in 2007 with a degree in applied physics engineering, then pursued graduate research in biological optics, participating in projects on light therapy for psychological disorders. From 2012-2015, he worked at a private laboratory affiliated with Stanford, responsible for developing therapeutic lighting devices. However, in 2016, Mercer was fired after the ethics board discovered he had conducted unauthorized experiments on animals and unapproved human tissue. The internal report stated clearly, researcher Mercer exhibited an obsessive tendency with the concept of absolute light and believed that high-intensity exposure to specific light spectra could cleanse diseased cells. After his contract was terminated, he withdrew to live in isolation in Reading, cutting off most contact with colleagues and family. In 2017, Mercer began participating in a semi-underground online religious group called the Light Ascension Group, an extremist organization blending mysticism and techno-salvation ideology. Digital records collected by the FBI showed he had posted numerous articles on the group's forum claiming artificial light possesses a divine essence and that humans can transcend sin by living in light that never turns off. In 2018, Mercer uploaded a manifesto over 60 pages long, titled The Luminous Path, describing a plan to create an absolute space of enlightenment where body and soul would be cleansed of darkness. In notes found at his residence, investigators read similar lines: "Light is pure life. Darkness is humanity's plague. I will create the first environment without the need for the night cycle." Psychiatric records obtained by the FBI from St. Joseph's Hospital in Reading showed Mercer had been diagnosed with delusional disorder of the messianic type after a short hospitalization in 2017 for disruptive behavior and prolonged insomnia. The treating physician noted he believed himself entrusted with a mission from a light entity and that physical pain is necessary to liberate the soul from darkness. Although recommended for long-term treatment, Mercer discontinued medication on his own and did not return for follow-up. 2 years later, the disappearance of Ava and Leah occurred, perfectly coinciding with the time he began purchasing medical lighting equipment and steel materials. The psychological report drafted by the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit concluded that Mercer had no financial or personal grudge motive. All preparation and execution stemmed from an extremist belief that he was performing a purification ritual. Psychological experts described him as having traits of obsessive personality disorder, high intelligence, strong logical reasoning ability, but distorted by a pathological belief system. He viewed the victims not as humans but as research subjects, part of an enlightenment experiment. In post-arrest interrogations, Mercer repeatedly mentioned phrases like, "They were chosen," and "light cannot harm the pure." When asked about Leah, he only said, "She refused to open herself to the light." Language analysis reports showed Mercer believed he was fulfilling a divine mission rather than committing a crime. This was reinforced by notes in his experiment log, where he classified the two victims as Subject A and Subject B, with descriptions like B, failed ascension. The analysis team concluded that Mercer was fully aware of his actions, but driven by a complex delusional system, leading him to believe that prolonged detention and constant illumination were a means of salvation, not torture. The experts determined Mercer's criminal motive was religious philosophical in nature and deviant, unrelated to economic gain, stemming from an extremist belief that light could purify the human soul, and that he was chosen to carry it out. From a once respected optics engineer, Mercer had spiraled into a criminal obsessed with the light he himself created, a light he believed was salvation, but which in reality had become his own instrument of destruction. In August 2023, nearly 4 years after sisters Ava and Leah Warren disappeared, and 9 months after the arrest of Colin Mercer, the formal trial began at the United States District Court for the Eastern District of California in Sacramento. The case drew particular national media attention due to its barbaric nature and the rare element of extreme religious psychology in a high-tech crime. Courtroom 3A was placed under strict security measures, with all spectators and reporters required to pass through 2 security checkpoints. Mercer was led in wearing an orange prison jumpsuit, his head shaved close, his face calm, eyes staring straight ahead toward the jury box. The prosecution was led by Assistant United States Attorney Thomas A. Keene, while the defense consisted of 2 court-appointed attorneys specializing in mental health cases. In the opening statement, the prosecution presented a closed chain of evidence, including 8 SD cards containing videos documenting the captivity, forensic records confirming Mercer's fingerprints and DNA at the scene, testimony from surviving witness Ava Warren, and documents including notes and technical drawings of the bunker. This evidence was described by the prosecution as one of the most consistent and comprehensive systems of evidence ever collected in modern federal investigative history. Over the 4-week trial, 32 witnesses were called, including forensic experts, crime scene investigators, criminal psychologists, and doctors who treated Ava. Portions of the videos were shown in court, in dead silence. Many in attendance had to leave the room, unable to endure the scenes of the 2 victims held under glaring white light. Ava, now 28 years old, appeared on the 10th day of the trial under special security protection. She answered briefly, her voice trembling but clear. "I didn't think I would survive, and he thought what he was doing was merciful." Her testimony reinforced the entire structure of the prosecution's case. The defense attorneys argued that Mercer suffered from delusional messiah complex and was unaware of his actions, but the FBI's psychiatric experts countered this, affirming that he fully understood the nature and consequences of his behavior. During cross-examinations, Mercer remained calm, repeatedly requesting to defend himself, but being denied. When asked if he wished to make a final statement, he only said, "Light cannot be put on trial." The prosecution emphasized that even if Mercer had delusional disorder, he still carried out a series of clearly planned actions, from constructing the underground facility, purchasing specialized equipment, to monitoring the victim's physiological responses, proving full criminal intent. A technical report presented by the FBI showed that Mercer had prepared the physical facility for nearly a year prior to the kidnapping, including designing a lighting system capable of adjusting wavelength and intensity to control human skin responses. DNA evidence from chains, Leah's blood and hair, along with Mercer's fingerprints at 27 locations in the bunker, were decisive factors, leading the jury to unanimously agree that this could not have been a spontaneous act. In his closing argument, Prosecutor Keene stated, "He didn't just kill, he tried to turn his crime into his own religious experiment." After 16 days of proceedings, on the morning of August 29, 2023, the 12-member jury delivered a unanimous verdict. Colin Mercer was guilty of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and torture under federal law. As the verdict was read, he maintained his composure, gave a faint smile, then closed his eyes. The court imposed the maximum sentence, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, to be served at the federal Supermax facility in Florence, Colorado. Judge Ellison stated in his remarks, "This was not merely murder, it was a complete betrayal of science and humanity." The Warren family was present in court. Karen broke down in tears upon hearing the verdict, while Ava simply bowed her head, clutching tightly the piece of leather bracelet belonging to her sister that had been returned after the investigation. Once the sentence took effect, the case file was marked complete and officially closed under Code 1409R, ending nearly 4 years of continuous federal investigation. In its final statement, the FBI confirmed, "The Warren case is one of the clearest demonstrations of the thin line between knowledge and fanaticism. When blind faith in science or religion exceeds ethical boundaries, it becomes a tool of crime." After the trial concluded in late August 2023, the Warren case was officially closed on the legal front, but its aftermath continued to linger in the lives of those involved. Ava Warren, the sole surviving witness, was transferred to a specialized medical center for treating severe post-traumatic stress disorder in Bend, Oregon. Doctors diagnosed her with severe photophobia. Whenever exposed to light sources above 200 lux, her body would react with contractions, rapid heartbeat, and hallucinations. Ava's therapy room was specially designed with dim amber lighting and light-absorbing walls, simulating a perpetual twilight to help her gradually reintegrate. Therapists described Ava's recovery progress as slow but marked by strong willpower. She continued to keep a daily journal, recording emotions and memories to manage her fear. In a rare interview with the press, Ava said softly, "I've learned to live with darkness because only in darkness do I feel safe." The Warren family left Portland and relocated to Salem, where they established the Leah Foundation to support families of missing persons and promote volunteer search efforts in wilderness areas. The foundation quickly gained community support, especially from those who had participated in the 2019 search campaign. In its first year, the Leah Foundation funded over $200,000 for local rescue team training projects and the development of emergency GPS apps for hikers. Karen Warren, the mother of the 2 girls, became the organization's spokesperson, frequently appearing at outdoor safety workshops and always ending her speeches with "No one truly disappears if we keep searching for them." Daniel Warren, who had led the initial searches for his daughters, spent much of his time advising families with missing loved ones. Their lives were forever divided since March 12, 2019. But from that pain, they found a way to turn loss into action. On the investigative side, after Mercer's conviction, the FBI reviewed all unsolved missing persons cases around the Mount Shasta area over the past 10 years. Data analysis revealed at least 2 cases, one in 2015, involving a 27-year-old woman named Rachel Kelm, and one in 2017, involving a male biomedical engineer named Thomas Avery, that shared similar characteristics, disappearances near abandoned mine areas, with no bodies or vehicle traces found. In October 2023, the Federal Investigative Unit decided to reopen these 2 cases under the hypothesis of possible links to Mercer or the extremist Light Ascension group. Agents discovered that Mercer had exchanged emails with 2 anonymous group members during the same periods as the disappearances, discussing preparations for the Enlightenment phase. The new investigation was conducted in secrecy, but the FBI confirmed it as an extension of the Warren case. Meanwhile, Mercer was transferred from temporary detention in Sacramento to the high-security Pelican Bay State Prison in Crescent City, California, a facility known for its isolated confinement system for particularly dangerous inmates. Reports from the California Department of Corrections indicated Mercer was classified as inmate zero contact, meaning no interaction with other prisoners and no access to natural light. He lived in a 6x 10-foot cell, illuminated 24/7 by low-wattage fluorescent lights, ironically mirroring the world he had once obsessed over. According to one guard, Mercer maintained his daily habit of writing, repeatedly jotting the phrase, "Light redeems all." All of his appeals were denied. From then on, his name gradually faded from news reports, surviving only in criminology archives as a classic example of the intersection between deviant science and extreme superstition. In Bend, with each arriving winter, Ava continued to send handwritten letters to her mother, saying she was starting to walk in the gentle afternoon light without panic. The Leah Foundation held annual memorial events in Portland, lighting thousands of white candles along the Willamette River bank. Candles symbolizing the light retained by humanity, not the destructive artificial light, but the kind that guides those still lost in the dark forest. In December 2023, the Federal Bureau of Investigation issued an official statement declaring that Case 1409R Fear, the Warren case, had completed all legal procedures and was permanently archived. The announcement concluded with, "From the darkness of Mount Shasta, justice has been found." The case of Sisters Ava and Leah Warren serves as a mirror reflecting a sobering reality in today's American society: the intersection of knowledge, extremist beliefs, and the consequences when humans lose their moral boundaries. Colin Mercer, a former optics engineer trained at Stanford, embodies the dark side of perfectionism and technological obsession. When blind faith in redemptive light exceeded the bounds of science, Mercer turned knowledge into a tool of crime, imprisoning 2 innocent women in an experiment under the guise of enlightenment. His actions reflect a danger facing American society when technology, power, and individual freedom advance too rapidly without a corresponding ethical foundation to guide them. From this story emerges a profound lesson that knowledge cannot be separated from humanity, and progress only has meaning when it serves people, not when it controls them. On another level, Ava, the survivor, represents the miraculous resilience of the human spirit. Though confined in light for years, she survived through instinct and the will to live. Later, her work with her family to establish the Leah Foundation was not just an act of remembrance, but a powerful message of healing, that compassion and humanitarian action can transform tragedy into meaning. In modern American society, where people easily become isolated and disoriented amid pressures from knowledge and extremist beliefs, the story of Ava and Leah reminds us that true light does not come from technology or radical religion, but from human kindness, clarity of mind, and the boundaries of conscience. Thank you for following to the end of the story about the Warren case. A reminder that light only has meaning when it illuminates truth, not when it conceals crime. Please subscribe to the channel to continue joining us on journeys exploring justice and the next mysterious story.